Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2024 Stand With Us Northwest Community Reception. To begin our program tonight, please welcome to the stage Rabbi David Ben Shalosh of Congregation Ezra B'Zereth.
Good evening, dear Rabbanim, Rabbaniot, community leaders, honorable friends. Please join me in prayer for the land of Israel, our dedicated soldiers, the release of our hostages, and the true success and strength of the Jewish nation. Now more than ever before, we feel God's right hand. We are ready and proud to be Jewish. We stand strong and united as one nation with one God and only one way moving forward to victory, vitality, and health. May I ask you to rise for the prayer for Eretz Israel. Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of the people of Israel, bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your love. Spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them. Crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace, and all of its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us all say, Amen. Finally, I would ask you in this very special moment to join me in reciting Shema Israel. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem. It is now my great delight and pleasure to introduce you to Elaine Solkin, Stand With Us Northwest Board President.
Thank you, Rabbi Ben Shalosh. Welcome. Before we honor those who have gone above and beyond for Israel and to support the critically important work of Stand With Us, I first want our board members to please rise so that we can thank you. Gilad, Yoni, Robert, Ariel, Tamar, Dawn, Marlene, Moti, Ken, Gordon, Rabbi Morel, Tommy, and Mike. Thank you for your amplified commitment to stand with us as you lead us locally with both your time and treasure. I also want to thank the tremendous leaders of our Jewish community, the rabbis and the heads of organizations who are here tonight, and ask them to stand as well, please. Your tenacious roll-up-your-sleeves dedication to educate, elevate, and convene our community is impressive. These times could not be tougher. And certainly, it has new meaning since October 7th. Thank you. Tonight marks 6 months since October 7th, the day that everything changed. As they have always done, Stand With Us leapt into action to get Israel's message out around the world. Please turn your attention to the screen as we look back to the founding years of this organization and see how they have turned your support into impact on the ground, both here in Seattle and worldwide.
What do you do when the world has gone mad? When logic, reason...
Hamas is not a terrorist group for us, of course, as you know. It's a political movement.
Morality...
We must normalize massacres as the status quo.
have all been inverted. Misinformation, propaganda, and hate speech are everywhere. What if there were somewhere to go to access effective and shareable messaging, guidance, support, legal help, and up-to-the-minute, accurate, and relevant information relating to Israel and the Middle East? That place exists, and it didn't happen by accident. During the Second Intifada, as Israelis struggled to defend the Jewish homeland from suicide bombings, shootings, and countless fatal attacks, Israel's right to self-defense and its right to exist were being delegitimized and demonized. Sound familiar? Israel was maliciously criticized for defending its citizens, and so were its supporters. Pro-Israel students were vilified and ostracized by faculty, anti-Semitic speakers, and worst of all, by fellow students. All the while, college administrations did nothing, and those students stood alone because the Jewish community didn't have a plan to deal with it. The need was clear, the situation was dire, and with a grassroots effort, Stand With Us was founded, championing the core mission of helping people around the world stand up for Israel and stand against anti-Semitism. We started by organizing rallies to show support for Israel. We hosted hand-picked groups of student leaders for educational conferences, and we grew and grew and grew. We saw that students needed guidance and support on their campuses, so we founded the Emerson Fellowship, a prestigious program that activates and empowers the next generation of college student leaders. The fellows have been making an impact on a global scale, with chapters in the US, Canada, Brazil, the UK, the Netherlands, South Africa, and Australia. We soon realized that we needed to prepare students before they experience the harsh realities of Jewish college life, so they could hit the ground running in leadership positions on their campuses. So, we founded our high school department, the flagship Kenneth Leventhal High School Internship, and our Teen Leadership Council. To date, nearly 2 million high school and college students have benefited from our programs. When data showed that young American Jews were rapidly losing their connection to Israel, we developed the Israel Link curriculum, now being used in hundreds of middle schools across America, to bond Jewish students with Israel in creative and inspiring ways. Soon after, the Stand With Us Side-Off Legal Department was born, coordinating hundreds of pro bono attorneys to defend students, faculty, and community members against anti-Semitic discrimination. We formed a Center for Combating Anti-Semitism to focus on stopping and teaching about the world's oldest hatred. We initiated a Holocaust education department, bringing dynamic programming into thousands of classrooms annually, teaching young people of all backgrounds about our history and what it truly means to never forget. All this while becoming leaders in social media, boasting over 1.6 million Facebook followers, 1.3 million on Instagram, and hundreds of thousands more in various languages, including in Arabic, where we share information and context about Israel, the Jewish people, and the Middle East. So when October 7th, 2023 came, and the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the end of the Holocaust occurred, and a war with Hamas ensued, we were ready to use the international platform we had built for 22 years to meet new threats and challenges head-on. The campus leaders we've trained, along with our alumni network with well over 1,000 graduates, have been stepping up for Israel in critical ways, organizing rallies, hosting Israel briefings, fighting propaganda online, and leading their communities with clarity, resilience, and strength, reaching over 70,000 peers in person, and extending our support to hundreds of colleges worldwide. And since October 7th, the Stand With Us high school team held over 500 educational briefings, presentations, and workshops for teens that reached over 55,000 high school students. And it is because of our multi-layered synergy and of the Side-Off Legal Department, whose caseload has increased tenfold, that we were able to act quickly and effectively in the wake of October 7th. In a muddled information landscape, our leading social media platforms have had over 1 billion interactions since the beginning of the Hamas war, and continue to reach millions each and every day. The world needs people of conscience to stand against genocidal terror, to push back against anti-Semitism, and to spread sanity in a world gone mad. It's up to all of us. It's up to me, and it's up to you. It is time to stand up and stand together. It's time to stand with us.
I'm truly honored to introduce our next speaker tonight. She is also a friend. Roz is the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors and co-founded Stand With Us 22 years ago, along with her husband Jerry and Esther Renzner. This international nonpartisan education organization combats anti-Semitism and supports Israel across 6 continents. Stand With Us has become one of the most significant players in pro-Israel education space. Since the inception of Stand With Us, the Forward magazine has twice named Roz one of the 50 most influential Jews, and twice named her one of the 50 most influential Jews in the world. Please welcome Roz Rothstein.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It's beautiful to see the room full. It is so meaningful for us, but it's also very meaningful for you, for each one of you, as I'll soon explain. But first, thank you, Elaine, because you are very special. She's so creative and organized, and she's such a great leader. Before I share remarks with you, I really wanted to just thank you, Elaine, wherever you are. Thank you. Elaine is incredible, and she has been the leader of our local branch board for the last 5 years, so we are most grateful. Not only that, but she has a husband, Bobby, who's sitting here somewhere, who was one of our very first pro bono attorneys. So thank you for that, Bobby. So what a team, what a team. And also, just by the way, congratulations to tonight's honorees. You guys do incredible, incredible work. So now a little commercial. Let me get ready for my commercial. My husband, Jerry Rothstein, was in marketing before we started Stand With Us. He was very successful. Gave up his career. I was a family therapist. I gave up my career because they were killing Jews in Israel and everybody was lying about whose fault it was. Same story we have right now, right? Same story. Okay, this is nothing new under the sun for us. But Passover is coming. And Passover, the theme of Passover, of course, is let my people go, right? And how appropriate and how meaningful is that today as our hostages sit in terror tunnels. So tonight we have a gift for you, for each one of you. We created an insert for your Haggadah that is 8 pages, and you can go through it and see what parts you want to include in your Seder. Please take 1 per family so that we have enough for everybody. In addition, he made me do this, but I think it's a good thing to do. I want to remind you that we have a Stand With Us Haggadah that is really very cool. No matter what branch of Judaism you're in, you could use it. You could pick from it. It's pretty remarkable. We still have some left, and he made this. So, Jerry, are you watching? This is over3000years.org. If you go here, you can order Haggadah if you need one, and we will ship it to you, but only if you order by April the 15th, and only if we have any left. So there's my commercial for you. I've done it. Yay! And now on a more serious topic. The Jewish world and the state of Israel and our allies have been suffering in so many ways since October 7th, when our world stood still and everything changed on October 7th. We're currently in a state of limbo, and we have to admit that to ourselves. We have to understand what we're going through. Our hostages are still being held by the sadistic terrorist group Hamas, and the only Jewish country in the world is at war. And as you know, today marks 6 months. We didn't plan that, but it was tonight. That is 6 months since that day, since that horrific day. And we have lost so much. People don't realize that in addition to all the people that were massacred in different communities bordering Gaza, that over 14,000 people, 14,000 Israelis and others have been injured since October 7th. We pray for their healing and their strength. But people don't talk about them, the injured. And as we know, far too many elected officials around the world and far too many media outlets are putting pressure on Israel to wind up the war without necessarily meeting Israel's two main objectives, even as objective number one, the hostages are still not free. Objective number two, Hamas is still in power at Israel's doorstep. As recently as last week, Hamas reminded us that they are still able to launch rockets into Israeli communities, and if they had the opportunity, they have openly threatened to repeat October 7th again and again and again. And we recognize all the suffering in Gaza because Hamas fights this unprecedented war by surrounding itself with civilians. So we are in limbo, and Israel is under tremendous pressure from all sides as we mourn those we have lost and fight for the hostages to come home. Such a challenging and devastating time, but we need to stay strong. So please take good care of yourselves, and I mean that. People are forgetting to take care of themselves. You're forgetting to drink, forgetting to take your medication. You're forgetting to take your vitamins, exercise, do all the things that you're supposed to do because we have to be in this for the long haul. You have to take care of yourself. Let's talk for a moment about the pressure that our students are under. One might have thought that after October 7th, our students might have found some comfort from their peers and their teachers and their professors when they returned to school. But it was quite the opposite, shockingly the opposite. There was more bullying and more discrimination and more anti-Semitism than we have ever seen in our lifetimes. Even to the point where Jewish students are being called dirty Jew. And far too many school administrations are doing absolutely nothing about it. Which is why there were a few things that we had to do after October 7th at Stand With Us. And you heard about some of them, but I'm going to repeat them for you because they're so important for you to know. We had to increase our legal department like in an instant. And we had to increase our social media team immediately. We had to provide more support to our college students and our high school students than ever before, and even our middle school students. We spent 22 years building this strong organization, thank God, that focused on supporting Israel and fighting anti-Semitism. But every one of our departments went crazy in terms of the pressure pushing down on the 15 departments following October 7th. But thank God we were there. So as you can imagine, it has still not calmed down for us because we have so much work to do, especially in the fight for hearts and minds. We have filed numerous Title VI complaints at universities. Please keep your eye on what we're doing. We have even dealt with anti-Jewish matters within middle schools and even in elementary schools. We're having success, so that's good news, but we have to stay on top of it and we have to press it because we cannot accept the state of affairs. All the bullying of Jews and our allies who support Israel has been a tragic side effect of the massacres which took place in southern Israel as the collaborators of the most vicious haters have emerged to join the racist fiestas against the Jews and our allies. I'm a daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. Now I understand the collaborators for the first time in my life. The collaborators jump in. They're already anti-Semitic, so they see the doors open and they jump in. That's what happened. Now I understand it. Speaking of allies, though, I want to thank everybody in this room that is not Jewish that is with us here tonight. So the question is, what are we supposed to be doing at this time? So first, I want to say this to you, a lesson from my parents. Ready? Nod your head. I can see you. Nod your head. You ready? I told one of you I was going to say this tonight, and it comes right after this. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and they always said, go where you're wanted. So how does that translate today? It means hang around with people who are like-minded friends who will welcome you into their midst at this difficult time in our history. Hang around with like-minded people who will welcome you, who will not fight with you, who will not make you feel small. This is that time. This is that time to gather like we are tonight. And a note to all our students here. Do not go it alone. This is not that time. This is a time to find your groups who are like-minded and who feel similarly to the way that you feel, so that you don't have to hide your Judaism and you don't have to hide your Zionism, and so that you can be yourselves. I am grateful every single day to have our international organization that is a resource for people of all ages, so we can help you educate your peers, no matter what age you are. I am grateful that we already had all of our platforms in place, our 15 departments up and running before October 7th. There are literally people coming up to us all the time now and saying, now I understand what you do at Stand With Us. Literally now they get it because of October 7th. And I'm grateful to all of you, our friends, our supporters, who have helped us sustain this organization and grow this organization, grow the legal department and our social media platforms, and help the students, help lift up our students at such a time as this. And students are very grateful. Tonight, I was thanked by lots of students who have been in our programs. They are very grateful. I want to show you something. We hosted 500 student leaders 1 month ago, the beginning of March. 500 students, half of them were from high school, half of them from colleges across the world, mainly in the United States and Canada. They all flew in from all over the world to Los Angeles. They arrived at the conference in a very sad state. Most of them, they didn't know each other. Most of them have been experiencing anti-Semitism. These are the leaders on our college campuses and in our high schools. Many were in tears, telling their terrible stories, and some of them, the stories, sounded actually very dangerous, very serious and very dangerous. But by the end of Shabbat, after 2.5 days, we saw something magical take place. And I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to show you what happened right after we had Havdalah, Jews and non-Jews together, and I want you to see what this looked like. Remember, these kids came in very broken, very concerned, very worried. So I'm going to ask Guy to show you something. This was our conference 1 month ago. We had a lot of our board members, our national board members, with us that night, and they were in tears. The floor shook from the dancing. And remember what I told you, 2.5 days earlier, those kids were not well. They came in looking for answers, looking for information, and looking for each other. Just like what we all must do now is look for each other and be together. And that is what's therapeutic and strengthening at this time. Somebody asked me earlier, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? Okay? You know who you are. A few of you did. Anyways, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? This is it, guys. We need to be together. We need to raise our voices. We need to be very loud now. That's what we need to do. And that is a big part of this answer of what are we going to do. But that is why we do what we do. I just got back from Israel. I spent time with injured soldiers at 2 different hospitals. I spent time with displaced civilians from the south. I went to Be'eri and Nativ HaAsara, and I went to the site of the Nova Festival. I sat on the floor of a bomb shelter where 20 young adults were sheltering, and 16 of them were murdered in that small space by Hamas throwing grenades at them. 4 of them were still alive and dragged into Gaza after that one incident, including Hirsch Goldberg Polin, after losing his right arm in the grenade attack. I met Hirsch's parents a few days after I sat next to his photo in the bomb shelter. I also met Malki, the father of Omer Shem Tov, still being held hostage, just like Hirsch, after 6 months of captivity, and please God, they're still alive. I went to Israel to show support from all of you, from our international organization, at a time when Israelis feel so broken and so isolated. I encourage all of you to find ways to show support for Israel and Israelis, like you're being here tonight. Continue gathering with people who welcome you at this time. I am an eternal optimist. I got this from my mother, who survived the Holocaust. We will prevail. We will prevail in this fight between good and evil. Meanwhile, we have to stay strong and stay engaged. Don't just worry about everything. Get more involved in everything. Make sure you write letters to elected officials. You could do it once a day, and it wouldn't be too much. Make sure you're holding journalists accountable. Write them letters. Make your voice heard. because they're leaving out Israel's side of the story when they tell stories. Force those news outlets to be accountable. Make sure you receive action alerts from Stand With Us and from other organizations that you trust that will keep you informed and offer you ways to stay engaged and to get more engaged. And educate as much as possible your friends and your relatives, because now is the time for information, good information. We have all these resources. They're free to you. Ask us for anything. We have every topic covered. And there's this one page that's pretty important you should know about. You know, Wolf Blitzer does the Situation Room. We have the Situation Room at Stand With Us. And it has all this information that's recent and topical. Thank you for your support for Israel, for the Jewish people, and of course, for Stand With Us. Am Yisrael Chai. And now, please welcome to the stage our talented local director, who has been with Stand With Us for 7 years and is a tremendous leader in the local battle for hearts and minds. Please welcome Randy Kessler.
Wow. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here tonight. It literally fills my heart with joy to see 500 of you in the room tonight. While Roz directs our global activities, our local team's job is to solve problems here in our region. And I'm going to go off script for just a moment because I really have to call out a person who's been a critical support in helping us do the work we do, my Associate Director, Jennifer Adut. And while we're going off script, I also have to say thank you for these beautiful flowers that you see here and all around this auditorium. We have a wonderful volunteer named Katie Porter, and I want to thank Katie very much for providing us with these flowers. Our first priority after October 7th, while we were all still in shock, was to bring the community together, to show public support for Israel, and to stand against Hamas terror. We worked with key local partners to organize and publicize rallies, and we reached out to local media to make sure that that message got out broadly in our community. The first rally that we had participated in took place just 2 days after the attacks, very quickly assembled in downtown Bellevue with hundreds of people waving flags, cheering, and chanting. And since then, there have been 9 other rallies attracting thousands of people. Now, of course, we weren't the only ones taking to the streets, organizing rallies and protests. The other side immediately mobilized. And so as an example of that, on October 12th, just 5 days after the attacks of October 7th, about 200 people took part in a fierce, vocal anti-Israel rally at Red Square on the University of Washington campus. The organizers used images of Hamas paragliders to promote this event, which they called a Day of Resistance. In anticipation of that, I prepared an op-ed for submission to the Seattle Times in advance that called out what I knew was going to happen at that rally, that there would be explicit support for terror. And really, the rally seemed like, rather than a resistance against Israel, it was very much a pro-Hamas rally. So I submitted it in advance right as soon as the rally ended, and fortunately, the Seattle Times published it just a few days later. Thank you. We've also spoken with dozens of parents, guiding them on how to handle harassment from students, as well as misinformation and bias when it comes from teachers in the classroom. In one of the more egregious cases that we ran into this year, we received a report from a parent of a second grader at a school in Shoreline, just north of Seattle here, that a teacher had led a social studies lesson in the class on, and I quote, "the history of Palestine and how land ownership has changed over the past 75 years. It included a 3-minute video on how these children could use their own voices for Palestine. And then the teacher had the students make their own protest posters. Here's what they drew. After a review of the district policies, Stand With Us sent a letter to the district superintendent and to the school principal calling out these apparent serious violations of district policy and requesting that they take immediate action to remedy the harm and to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And what do you think happened? Nothing. We didn't hear back. We waited 2 weeks. After we didn't hear back, we called the superintendent's office to bring it to her attention and let her know that we needed a response. And still, we heard nothing. So, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, we issued a press release. And on February 15th, the story was published by multiple news outlets. And what do you think happened? They responded to us. Lo and behold, they reached out to us that very same day to let us know that they received our complaint and that they were going to investigate the matter and get back to us within 15 days. Seemed pretty bureaucratic, right? After 8 days, they got back to us with a letter that said that they did indeed violate, the teacher and the lesson did indeed violate 3 different district policies. And so they sent out an all-school email about the issue, which was admittedly well-written. They reiterated the instructional materials policy to all teachers. So, okay, we felt pretty good. But despite that, an anti-Israel bias was planted in the minds of second graders. We can't get rid of that. We wouldn't have known about this had it not been for the one parent who had the courage to speak up. So when we talk about the power of one person and one voice, that's a prime example. There is so much more that I want to tell you about what we have, what you and all of our other supporters of our organization have enabled us to accomplish. I want to tell you details about the 150 city councils across Washington and Oregon that we emailed, encouraging them not to pass one-sided Gaza ceasefire resolutions. And we built relationships with some of these city council members as a result. I want to tell you about the work we did to enable a visit to Seattle by family members of Israeli hostages. And I really want to tell you about the grassroots work we're doing with partners in cities like Spokane, Bellingham, Boise, and Eugene. But you'll have to catch me later for a cup of coffee if you want to hear about all that, because I am out of time. And right now, it's time for you to meet some of the amazing people that we are honoring tonight. To introduce them, I would like to invite Elaine to come back up to the podium. And please welcome Elaine Zuckerberg.
Thank you, Randy. And I think we need another round of applause for Randy because outstanding. Really. Thank you so much. Every year we introduce you to someone who exemplifies the qualities of one of our former founding board members, David Brumer, who very sadly passed away at the age of 56 in 2012. David was a loving husband and father, as well as an organizer and educator and a passionate advocate for Israel. Tonight, the David Brumer honorees are 13 members of our local community whose actions after October 7th would have made him so proud. Each of our honorees tonight was nominated as a local hero, a person who stepped up and took action for Israel in their very unique way. Some tirelessly rallied our Seattle community and continue to do so, while others journeyed to Israel, providing impact on the ground. In addition to these 13 individuals, we know that others, including many of you in this room, perform audacious acts of heroism. You can read about each of our heroes this evening in the program, but now we're going to highlight 3 exceptional stories. Please take a look.
I saw the voices in the street and touching the people, and I knew that this is something I need to do. It wasn't an option to just stay and do nothing. We collaborated with Stand With Us, with Chabad, with a variety of other organizations, and we brought the delegation of the hostages family here and met with all the senators. We were actually able to do something significant to help the families.
The Jewish people do not like war. We do not seek war. What would a ceasefire do? It would allow Hamas to continue to get away with what they've gotten away with. The vast majority of our community and the vast majority of Americans realize that this moment was like Israel's 9/11, and it's not a time Israel to be pressured into a ceasefire. Bring them home!
And the empty shoes represent the empty shoes that they should be filling. I think if it was any other minority group to have the kind of hatred, it would get much more attention. But it is blatant anti-Semitism, and it's incredibly disturbing. We just want peace. We didn't ask for this. We didn't want this. We just want peace. We want them to know that they're not forgotten, and they will not be forgotten until they come home.
I really want to urge everyone in this room, like our family did today, and we try to do, to join these rallies, to show force. So please try if you can. Many of you know, you heard from Roz, I'm married to a wonderful attorney who represented Stand With Us in an important case that went to the Washington Supreme Court many years ago. So while I personally do not know Moshe Adman, I know the extreme emotional and professional commitment required to take on this incredibly challenging legal work. Together, let's witness how Moshe Adman's legal expertise and care provided the essential tools for change and empowerment, as well as the profound necessity and power of Stand With Us's pro bono legal network.
I wrote a letter to the provost, I wrote a letter to the president, I wrote a letter to the dean of the department, and I wrote a letter to the head of the residential life department, and I started calling them, and somebody responded, and they said, why don't we have a meeting in our office? What happened ultimately was the Israeli girl was cleared of any wrongdoing. We thought that was the end, and everything was quiet, and the student could go back to being a student, focusing on her grades and her life. But around mid-February of this year, this Muslim student posted her narrative on Instagram. This Instagram post accused the Israeli student of what she had accused her in the past, with more embellishments, many of which we can prove to be completely false. This narrative of hers, this letter of hers, got comments. Many of them include physical threats to the Israeli student. The Attorney General's office contacted me because they represent the university, and we've been in communication. All of my representation of this student and her family have been completely pro bono. But it's my obligation, it's my duty. I'm a Jew, I'm an Israeli, I'm an American, and this is a very important issue to our community. It's a very important issue to me. I've interacted with Stand With Us in New York, with several attorneys over there. We've been discussing strategies in terms of potential legal claims and what to do. If things heat up at the university and we do have to engage in some form of litigation, then Stand With Us is going to be heavily involved in that. It's not just her fight, right? It's not just the fight of the student, it's our fight.
Thank you, Moshe. Now we shift to the heart of Israel post-October 7th. We expressed our deepest gratitude to those who have served in Israel since October 7th, bringing our communities with their dedication and courage. I have connections with both of these next two honorees. Though I just met Aviva Jaffe, we quickly came to understand that our families go back 34 years to when my oldest was in preschool with her sister. Rabbi Chaim, on the other hand, has a pivotal, profound, selfless force of healing and inspiration to wounded IDF soldiers, their families, and to families in every major US city, Canada, and around the world, from Melbourne to Mexico City. He is also one of my dearest personal friends and friends of our family. I am sure he is fatigued of hearing what I say, often behind his back and sometimes to his face. If we are made in the image of God, Rabbi Chaim got spiked with just a little extra. Let's watch.
Even though I'm safe in America, I want to be there for my friends. I can go to as many protests as I want, but I did the army. Like, let me go back, you know? I was there for a total of 2 months. The first month I was volunteering, helping cook for soldiers. I was speaking to friends, and one of them mentioned, oh, there's the yeshuv in the West Bank that really needs someone to help. I called. The head of the yeshuv says, do you have a uniform? And I said, of course I kept it. And he said, okay, put it on and come here now. I think it's really important that us Jews who live abroad also do our part if we're able to. My mom's Leah Jaffe, she owns Leah's Catering. I think my mom had that same burning feeling of, I want to do something too. And my mom came and she packaged medical supplies. It's really important to stand our ground right now and not hide. We did that in the past. We're not doing that again.
Brothers for Life is an organization that was created and is run by injured Israeli combat soldiers. They take their injuries and they help newly injured Israeli combat soldiers reclaim their lives after injury. We have hundreds of injured soldiers who are our mentors deploying to hospitals around the country to attend to newly injured soldiers. They go to these hospital beds and they tell them, Achi, Chod, my brother, my sister, I was in that bed. We're here to help you. You will never be alone again. Whether it's financial, medical, PTSD, we're helping them get their life back. Right now, there are thousands of soldiers who are risking their lives to protect us. Over 2,500 soldiers have been injured in this war, and badly injured. Since October 7th, we've had close to 1,400 individual intake sessions with injured soldiers and their families in the hospital. Honestly, this is the minimum we can do and only the beginning. I have never seen the Jewish people come together like I've seen since October 7th. I know we're going to win this war because there is such a spirit of sacrifice and giving. You know, we call this organization Brothers for Life, but it's really, like I said, it's really a movement. It really is.
I'd like to ask all of our honorees to please stand. They're out there. Please join me in welcoming to the stage two of our exceptional, fun, young, local staff members who are at the forefront of our work with students. Their dedication, energy, and efforts in the areas of education and activism have been instrumental in shaping the next generation of leaders. Please give them a warm round.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Michael Graves, the Northwest High School Regional Manager. Thank you very much for Stand With Us. I'm responsible for overseeing all of our programming, education, legal intake, and high school outreach for the Northwest region. Since September 2023, our efforts have reached over 8,000 students through over 90 programs in high schools across the Northwest. This encompasses a variety of initiatives, including unique student-led programs, partnerships cultivated through workshops and speeches, and hosting speaker tours with our in-house educators. Among the many facets of my work, there's one that holds a very special place in my heart. I have the privilege of leading the Kenneth Leventhal High School internship, comprising 14 exceptional interns from our region, some of whom are with us today. Their dedication elevates our programs and contributes significantly to our outreach efforts. These students, selected from a competitive pool of applicants, are at the forefront of combating anti-Semitism on their campuses and in their communities. It's both my privilege and responsibility within the high school department to provide them with the resources and education they need to advocate for Israel and embrace their proud Zionist identity.
That was wonderful, John Michael. My name is Liv Schneider. I'm the Northwest Campus Regional Manager. At colleges and universities around the Northwest region, we've seen an alarming amount of incidents of anti-Semitism since October 7th. Since that day, in partnership with our Center for Combating Anti-Semitism and our Sedov Legal Department, we've responded to over 60 incidents of hate, vandalism, verbal harassment, and physical assault in the Northwest region alone. We have met with administrators, boards of regents, police, and Title VI offices. We've helped students write legislation and encouraged them to use their voices. We've also used one of our greatest strategies, what we call counter-programming, to educate about Israel and uplift Jewish and Israeli students. Through our counter-programming initiatives, including speaker tours, campaigns, rallies, and marches, we have engaged more than 3,000 students on college campuses here in the Northwest since October 7th. The number of students grows each and every day. This year, I had the privilege to mentor 10 Stand With Us Emerson Fellows here in the Northwest region, from here to Northern California, and a few of those Emerson Fellows are here tonight. These fellows are the leaders of the Jewish and Israeli American communities on campus. They work tirelessly to improve the climate on their campuses. They stand up for Israel every single day, And our work would be impossible without them, and their work would really be impossible without you. So tonight, we honor one of our outstanding local students from right here in Seattle. So please take a look.
We had a student government meeting. There was this resolution to reaffirm this anti-Israel resolution that had been passed a couple of years previously. That called Israel apartheid state, a settler colonial entity. Me and one other Jewish student on campus came to protest the bill. There was around 70 anti-Israel students. And then it was just us two in a corner, in this overcrowded room. One after the other, these students are going, they're giving their, anti-Israel spiels, calling Israel apartheid state, they're saying they're, genocidal. Any insult you can think of, this was what was said at that meeting. Me and the other Jewish student, we go and we give our speeches explaining why this bill would be harmful to the Jewish community. After we gave our public statements, this speaker came up and he pointed at myself and the other Jewish student, and he said,
"How about you take the Jews back to Europe, where they came from? Take them back to where they came from. They came from Germany. It was not my fault. It wasn't the Palestinian fault. You come back and they clean their act."
He finishes the public statement, and the room erupts into applause. The response we got is that the anti-Semitic incident would be investigated, but this didn't really go anywhere. The person wasn't a student. There wasn't really a way to punish someone who wasn't on campus. We decided we're gonna make a post on our Instagram, and we attached a video. We explained why it was problematic, why it was false what he was saying, and we posted this, and it immediately sort of gained traction. We have these huge accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers which were reposting it. We got a lot of Jewish students reaching out to us saying thank you for actually speaking about this, actually standing up to it. So we ended up getting contacted by News Nation, a news organization which has 80 million listeners across the country, saying that they wanted to speak with me about the incident which occurred on campus. I got training from Stand With Us. They told me exactly what to say, how to say it.
I want to begin with that apology that you just heard from the UPenn president. How did you feel about what she said after the backlash that she got due to what she said on Capitol Hill?
Hi, Marty. And first, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. It's absolutely terrifying what she said. The violence against Jews didn't start with the gas chambers. It started with genocidal rhetoric which dehumanized Jews. And this is what incited violence against us. So when you have university presidents who are saying that this won't violate code of conduct, these calls for genocide, what they're really saying is that they will not keep their Jewish students safe. They're telling Jewish parents, if you send your children to our school, they won't be safe. So I'm very upset by what she said, and frankly, I think her apology fell short, especially given the numerous chances she had to correct herself.
Stand With Us' efforts were integral to our ability to write our public statements, our op-ed, conduct the interview with News Nation. Even meeting with the administration, the amount of preparation we needed, it would have been impossible without all the support that Stand With Us provided. Where I didn't have any experience or really any ability to advocate for myself was within student government and with the administration, because I didn't have any experience there. Stand With Us is an organization which has worked with student governments, with school administrations for decades. And this experience was vital in our ability to advocate for ourselves on campus. For many university students in Seattle, they viewed the word Israeli as synonymous with colonizer. What that means is that for any Israeli student on campus, their identity in itself is an offense. That's why you've seen many of these organizations explicitly state that they don't want Zionists on campus, but really what they mean are Israelis and really mostly Jewish students. That's why what Stand With Us does on these campuses is so important, because otherwise, Jewish and Israeli students, they will be alienated, they'll be demonized, and it will only get worse.
Thank you. Friends, you've just heard my story, a personal account of encountering anti-Semitism. Sadly, my experience is not unique. College campuses are quickly becoming inhospitable for Jewish students. For myself and countless peers worldwide, Stand With Us has been a lifeline. Their role in preserving and empowering Jewish voices on campus cannot be overstated. Their dedicated staff work tirelessly to ensure that students like me can stand up for ourselves, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. Tonight, we gather as a resilient community, determined to make a difference. Each of you has the power to influence the next generation of Jewish leaders by supporting Stand With Us. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for an investment in our future as a people. At this critical moment in our history, your support is crucial to help Stand With Us support the next generation of students like me. As you entered this hall, you received the program, pledge, card, and pen. I ask you to please make a gift or pledge tonight. Our volunteers are ready to collect your contributions, or you could donate online using the QR code on your program. Because Stand With Us has earned top ratings from Charity Navigator and GuideStar for transparency and fund usage, you know that your donation will be used to deliver even more support and impact here in our community. Also, tonight I'm excited to announce an extra incentive. 2 donors have stepped forward with a challenge grant. Every new donor who gives over $180 will have their gift matched, and every donor who increases their gift from last year will see the increased amount matched. There's a pot of $50,000 available for gifts made tonight. Now, more than ever, we need your partnership. Please don't let the pledge card sit idle. Help us tonight, or if you plan to give later, make a pledge now so we know we have your support in the year ahead. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to Israel and the Jewish people. Am Yisrael Chai.
I want to thank everyone in advance for their tremendous generosity. At this moment, we are truly thrilled to have Dr. Anat Wilf in Seattle. She's a leading thinker on Israel, Zionism, foreign policy, and education, and was a member of the Israeli parliament from 2010 to 2013, where she served as chair of the Education Committee of the influential Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. Born and raised in Israel, Dr. Wilf served as an intelligence officer in the IDF and was foreign policy advisor to Vice Prime Minister Shimon Peres, as well as a strategic consultant with McKinsey. Dr. Wilf has a BA from Harvard, an MBA from INSEAD in France, and has a PhD in political science from the University of Cambridge. Wilf is also the author of 7 books that explore key issues in Israeli society. Her latest book, We Should All Be Zionists, as well as what seems to be in everybody's hands today, The War of Return, How Western Indulgence of the Palestinian Dream Has Obstructed the Path to Peace. Please welcome Dr. Anat Wilf.
Does this work? Okay. Oh, I can't see you. Well, first I have to say this has been deeply moving to see. It's not that I don't know the work of Stand With Us, but seeing what you've been doing for the last 6 months has been truly remarkable. And you should know that it's deeply meaningful coming from Israel to see you here, your commitment, all that you do, and I want to thank you for that. So I have to share with you a sense of fear as I go on stage. I almost wonder if I should keep giving talks, because people want uplifting talks, inspiration, and for quite a few years now, even though I've been hiding it very well, it hasn't been fun to be me. And the message that I've been bringing about the Palestinian ideology has been tough. But especially since October 7th, even though more people are listening and willing to listen, it's almost been tougher. And I have been in numerous meetings when, for example, a billionaire who brought to Israel senior people at the end of my talk took me aside and said, "You can't be a Debbie Downer, you have to say something else." Or a German member of parliament who said, "Well, you can't say those things." And I was like, "But they're true." Or members of Congress with whom I spoke and kept saying, "But you can't be right." And I give them all the evidence and they say, "But still it can't be true." Or someone will come after a talk and say, "I wish I could disagree with you, but I can't." So I thought, okay, how will I present it? Can I put a positive spin on it? And I have only one, and this will be kind of my introductory to the trigger warning, because at the end of the day, if you look at kind of the early Zionist writings, they were not this, they were brutal. They spoke about the Jewish condition in the most brutal language. They spoke about the dangers facing the Jews in the most clear terms. And that's how they created change. They didn't create change by running away from the truth. They created change first by acknowledging it. So even though in a recent talk, also with members of Congress, they were Democratic, so it was especially tough on them, they came out and they were like, this is too brutal. It's true, but it's brutal. We don't, So it's going to be brutal, but it will be true. And I offer it because it's the only thing that I know to give as the precursor of change. So what is going on? Because I think that is what all of us are asking. What is going on? How did we get here? And I will say some words about the Palestinians and the Arab world, but mostly about those who have aided and abetted them for the last century. So to the credit of the Palestinians, the Arabs of the Levant, they have always been truthful. Yes, they will lie on everything from Gaza as an open-air prison, and when that is exposed, they will lie about a genocide or a mass starvation, and when lies are exposed, they will create new ones. But there's one thing that they have never lied about, and that they still do not lie today, and they are actually our best allies in telling that truth. And that is that their battle has always been singularly, consistently, not against the occupation, not against settlements, not against Netanyahu, but against the very existence of a Jewish state in any borders, in any territory, between the river and the sea, anywhere. And to their credit, they have been clear, they have been consistent throughout. As I did the research for the book that became The War of Return, the reason that I even began to think about these issues is that I grew up in the Israeli left. I was euphoric in the decade of the 90s. I voted for Rabin. I voted for Barak. I believed in the possibility of a new Middle East. I was sure that the only thing that separates us from a new Middle East of peace and harmony was giving land for peace. If only the Palestinians would have a state of their own in the West Bank and Gaza, we will have peace. I was thrilled when Barak made the proposal in that vein, but had to explain why Arafat, a Palestinian leader, walked away from a clear, concrete opportunity to have a sovereign Palestinian state that ended Israel's military control of the West Bank and Gaza, the occupation, a capital in East Jerusalem, no settlements, including holy sites in East Jerusalem, and he walked away. 8 years later, in 2008, Abu Mazen walks away from a similar proposal. Israel keeps proposing. They follow it up with violence. You saw the images of the misnamed Second Intifada. Did you notice how right now, with globalized Intifada, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution? They want to pretend that Intifada is just like gentle shaking off. You saw what it looked like. This is what they want to globalize. This is what happened after they could have had their state. So I began to ask questions, just like people are asking now. What's going on? What do they want? And I realized that they always told us what they wanted. And as I did the research that became the book, The War of Return, by the way, if you have the book, notice that it was translated by Elon Levy, long before he became Elon Levy. So as I did, together with Adi Schwartz, the research that became The War of Return, the book, I came across a quote that I've been using ever since, because it's the entire conflict in a nutshell. It's by Ernst Bevin, the British foreign minister after World War II. If you know anything about Ernst Bevin, he did not like Jews, and certainly not Jews who wanted independence. But he hears the sides. He listens to them. And he goes to the British Parliament in February of 47. This is February 47. There's no occupation, there's no settlements, Jerusalem is out of the picture, there's no Nakba, there's no refugees. The state of Israel doesn't exist. And he needs to explain why Britain failed to fulfill the trust that it received from the League of Nations unanimously to help the Jews achieve sovereignty. Britain did not fail to fulfill its promise to the Arabs. It created Jordan, it created Iraq, but it failed to fulfill the promise to the Jews. Why? He says His Majesty's government is faced with an irreconcilable conflict. He calls it irreconcilable in February of 47. Why? He says, in the land between the river and the sea, there are Jews and Arabs, and each one of them have one goal, one top priority, something they value above all else. He says, for the Jews, the top priority is to establish a Jewish state. So the Jews want sovereignty, self-determination. That's the basis of Zionism, self-determination for the Jewish people in their homeland. He says, and the Arabs, their top priority, hear this, is to prevent to the last the establishment of a Jewish state in any part of the land. To the last, in any part. Total and complete rejection of the idea of Jewish sovereignty anywhere in the land. That's their top priority. Their top priority is not a state for themselves. Never has been. Their top priority has always been first that the Jews shall not have their state, then everything else. And I had to come to terms, and it was tough. It took me about a decade from the failure of the Camp David negotiations. You know, in parentheses, an American negotiator recently said, he said it in a closed room, so I won't say who he is, but he said, you know, as I look back at the years, almost decades of negotiations, I have to admit that there were never negotiations. Israel offered. The Arabs said no. Israel offered more. Arafat and Abu Mazen said no. And just like we're seeing now, the Americans would pressure Israel to offer more, and Israel would offer more. And Arafat and Abu Mazen still walked away. He said there were never negotiations, not in the sense of both sides trying to come to an agreement. So the Palestinians have been consistent in their goal that there should not be a Jewish state. And you know, a few years ago, the book, after it came out in Israel, won a prize. And when Adi and I gave a talk at the event for the prize, in the audience there were Druze officers. You know who the Druze are, a small Arab-speaking Muslim community, a sect, who are, because they're a small minority, they are loyal to whichever state they live in. They serve in the Israeli military. They are senior officers. So two Druze officers come to Adi and I at the end of the talk and they say, congratulations, we have found the two Israeli Jews who understand what the conflict is about. He says, the Arabs keep telling you and you're not getting it into your head. And I understand that. I understand the impulse to believe that it's the occupation or the settlements or this terrible government, if only to truly accept that their vision is so total is incredibly difficult. And one of the reasons that they have been able to persist for over a century in saying no, 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 and no to any proposal of partition, any proposal of peace, to keep imagining that one day they will have from the river to the sea, they will reach their top priority that Bevin realized of no Jewish state anywhere. The reason that they have been able to persist in it is that they have been aided and abetted in this goal for more than a century. Why? And now let's admit the real fundamental truth. No one, and I mean no one, would have cared about the fate of several hundreds of thousands, now millions of Arabs living in the Levant if they had not been waging a total war against the Jews. And not just any Jews, Jews who had the chutzpah to seek sovereignty, dignity, self-determination. The fact that the Arabs of the Levant committed themselves to waging total war against the Jewish goal for self-determination, that is what made them so valuable. And that's what they discovered fairly early on. As they began to wage their battle, maybe initially because they were not pleased with the Jews coming, or they were not used to seeing Jews, right? For 1,400 years, the only Jews that the Arab and Muslim world knew were Jews who were dispossessed, powerless, exiled, living at the mercy of the Arab and Muslim ruler, never allowed to ride horses because horses were a mark of dignity, only donkeys, never allowed to carry arms because their protection was the privilege of the Arab and Muslim ruler. After 1,400 years, when this is the only kind of Jew you know, to suddenly in your midst meet Jews who are riding horses, carrying arms. Remember the early images of the Shomer? That's unacceptable. Go back to where you belong. That's not how you will meet us as equals. So maybe this is how their battle began. But what they discovered fairly early on is that they have a massive asset in that their battle is against the Jews who are seeking sovereignty and self-determination. And that meant that at any given moment, they could draw on the support of every anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish power of the moment. So in the 30s and 40s, they had a remarkably fruitful cooperation with the Nazis. Today we pretend that it's something small. Oh, Hitler and the Mufti appear in an image. No. The Arabs were part of the Axis, very much wishing and seeking the victory of Nazi Germany. The Mufti was part of the officers escaping a trial in Nuremberg by a deal. They had the same goals, the same values, only prevented from achieving them by Montgomery and El Alamein. And then, as the Nazis head to the dustbin of history, they are replaced by the Pan-Arabists. The idea of Arab unity, which was only ever united by their singular opposition to a Jewish state. That's how they organized themselves. And the Pan-Arabist turned Palestinianism into the secular theology of what it means to be an Arab. They literally created the Palestine Liberation Organization in Egypt in '64. It's tough to find them, but if you find maps of the PLO from '64 to '67, the Palestine they seek to liberate does not include the West Bank, which at the time is annexed to Jordan, nor the Gaza Strip, which is under Egyptian occupation. The Palestine they seek to liberate, you see in those logos from 64 to 67, is the State of Israel in its pre-67 ceasefire lines. And just as Nazi propaganda in Arabic continues to mark Palestinianism till the present, it shows everywhere in the Hamas charter, so that the pan-Arabism that create the secular idea of theology of Palestinianism continues today in the Arab street, the idea that to be Arab, you must be an anti-Zionist. And when pan-Arabism headed to the dustbin of history, it was replaced by the Soviet Union, the major backer of Palestinianism for at least 3 decades. And just like with the Nazis and the pan-Arabists, we are still dealing with the legacy of the Soviets. Because what the Soviets did is that they used Palestinianism, the idea of Palestinian rights, as a very respectable and useful mask for spreading anti-Zionism into the global system. And so in 1975, they bring to the United Nations the resolution of Zionism as racism. Have you ever wondered why in 1975 the Soviet Union brings Zionism as racism to the UN? Have they spent decades researching Zionism and thinking, it's a form of Zionism, let's have the UN acknowledge it? What happens is that a few months earlier, the United Nations resolves, as the United Nations, to fight racism. So the nations are united in the agreement that racism is bad. So now the Soviet Union sees an opportunity, slap racism next to Zionism, so that now everyone knows that by association, Zionism partakes in the evil that is racism. And this idea of laundering the most evil ideas, Zionism is racism, Israel's committing apartheid, Israel's committing genocide, Israel is a colonial state, imperialist, all these ideas get laundered under the guise of Palestinianism, of Palestinian rights, to international bodies gaining respectability. Bringing genocide to the International Court of Justice is a page out of this playbook. Launder this idea, give it respectability, so that now students in the streets and academia, they can all say it with the knowledge that they are standing up for Palestinian rights. And that is the legacy, the enduring legacy of the Soviet Union in the West. A couple of days ago, I spoke to some Republican members of Congress, and I told them, you are under the mistaken impression that you beat the Soviet Union. They might just beat you yet. Because they have inserted into the bloodstream of America the one idea that brings down societies. No society has ever survived intact, has ever come out well when it was gripped by anti-Zionism, by anti-Semitism. It's not a coincidence that all backers of the Palestinian cause have found themselves in the dustbin of history, because they never cared about Palestinian rights. This was always the incredibly useful mask behind which the most useful political tool of scapegoating appears. You know, I don't define anti-Semitism as a prejudice, as a hatred, as a conspiracy theory. I define it as the political scapegoating mechanism of societies in crisis. And it is especially useful in societies that have already invested centuries, if not millennia, of cultural capital in the Jewish scapegoat. A lot of people have asked me over the years, okay, we understand the need of societies in crisis to scapegoat, but why the Jews? And I tell them so much cultural capital is invested in it. It's just too tempting. Think about it. All that people have to say right now is baby killers. And you tap into centuries of blood libels about the ritual bloodlust of the Jew for the blood of non-Jewish children. And it's ritualistic. And that's all you have to do. The children in Gaza, and you tap into it. It's just too tempting not to use. But every society that became obsessed with the scapegoating, you know, the person who wrote and studied most about the mechanism of scapegoating in societies, René Girard, he said that societies in crisis ask two questions: what to do and who to blame. Societies ask both questions, but those that ultimately emphasize what to do emerge from the crisis, because they ask what to do, they answer what to do, they do it, and they emerge from the crisis. Societies that became stuck on who to blame entered into a vortex of madness that brought them down. So it's no coincidence that societies that hid behind the idea of the Palestinian cause, which has always been the cause of no Jewish state, that have hid behind it in order to promote their scapegoating, the Nazis, the Pan-Arabists, the Soviets, the jihadists. And I have no doubt that their current backers in Iran, they will follow the same path. I think also their supporters in the West. But I care more and am concerned more about what this means here, less so for Iran. I have no doubt that just as their previous supporters were in the dustbin of history, so will their current supporters. That's the good news. The bad news is as those societies enter into a vortex of madness, they cause tremendous damage to the Jews. We don't need to expand on the Nazis. The Pan-Arabists, in the name of anti-Zionism, they love Jews. They have nothing against Jews. It was just anti-Zionism. In the name of anti-Zionism, when it became the dominant ideology across the Arab world, within a decade, no Jews from Morocco to Afghanistan were left. These are communities preceding the Arab and Muslim conquests, going to Babylonian times, within a decade, all gone in the name of anti-Zionism. And the Arab world could not have done something stupider than expel the Jews. And the Soviet Union, we know how it treated the Jews, and always in the name of anti-Zionism. As far as the Soviet Union was concerned, there's no such thing as Jews. And we're seeing what's happening right now on American campuses. In the name of anti-Zionism, we have nothing against Jews. But the arc is always the same. Whether by intent or not, when anti-Zionism dominates a society, at the end of it, no Jews are left. It can claim all they want, that they love Jews, that they have nothing against Jews. But when a society turns anti-Zionist, because it's really just a respectable mask for anti-Semitism, the environment turns hostile for Jewish life, and it is not fought against, no Jews are left. So this is a moment, if we understand it correctly, of great peril. Yes, at the end of the day, those ideologies will find themselves in the dustbin of history. But we need to make sure that we are safe as they make their way to the dustbin of history. This is a moment to take care of our own. I know that we have an instinct of taking care of everyone else but ourselves. Now's the moment to reverse that. For a while, in case you're worried, we'll go back to taking care of everybody else. But this is the time to take care of our own, to stand up for ourselves, to be able to clearly say that right now our concern is our people. Believe me, I know that when I'm saying that, even you here are cringing. I listened to Steven Spielberg's speech recently. People hailed it, finally speaking against anti-Semitism. And as he spoke, he couldn't but also say, and all hate and Sikhs and Muslims. And I thought, enough. Now is the moment to just take care of ourselves. That is what we need right now, and we have every right to stand up for ourselves. And that is the first step that we need to take as we begin to remind ourselves to have self-respect and have standards. For so long, we wanted to believe the best about Palestinians, the Arabs, our allies, that we would look the other way of things that were uncomfortable, only to discover that what we suspected was true. For many years, remember there's interfaith initiatives, there's dialogue. I don't know if you've noticed, but dialogues between Jews and Israelis and Palestinians always look like that. Palestinians say that Israel's to blame, Jews agree, and everyone goes home and thinking they had a great conversation. And so, this is really the moment to understand that the peril is indeed great. I called a friend of mine a few days ago and I said, I want you to consider a thought. I'll get back to you and we'll discuss it. Could we have arrived at the moment when the Palestinians are actually, they don't matter anymore? One state, two state, what's going to happen in Gaza? Because they have finally fulfilled their purpose. They have allowed for 75 years after the Holocaust to incubate and legitimate anti-Semitism, give it the possibility to flourish, to grow, to enter academia, to enter people's minds. And now that it's been unleashed into the world, they're not needed anymore. And something dark has been unleashed into the world. And I have to say, in many ways, this is a tragedy, clearly for the Jews, but also for Palestinians, to ultimately serve as the useful mask of every anti-Jewish and anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic ideology is a terrible fate for a people. Every time that they could have said to themselves, you know what? Maybe spending a century fighting against the Jewish state, mobilizing all our resources, all our skills, all our abilities to trying to destroy the Jewish state, maybe not such a great use of our time. Every time that they could have had that thought, they were so useful that everyone rushed in to say, no, no, no. You are victims, pure victims of sheer evil. Change nothing. Keep fighting. It's your rights. It's justice. I see the 1-2 Palestinians on Twitter who are trying to make this claim. Enough is enough. We need to live next to the Jewish state, not instead of it. Those who condemn them are Western progressives who say, absolutely not. It's justice, it's rights. Keep fighting. They're not being allowed to even dare express the possibility that they might pursue a different future. And this has been a terrible combination. So this is where we are. This is why we need to concern ourselves first and foremost with our safety. This is the moment. We don't need to apologize for it. This is our moment for our solidarity, for our strength, for speaking up for ourselves, and for having standards and self-respect. No one has ever respected anyone for throwing their people under their bus. We will only ever gain by standing up for ourselves, speaking up for ourselves, and taking care of ourselves. Thank you.
Anat Wilf, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. As you leave, don't forget what Roz told you, that there are Haggadah inserts that you are able to take as you go downstairs and head back out to your cars. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.